If you told me a year ago that my life would turn into something out of a bad soap opera, I would have laughed you right out of Hanover, Pennsylvania. I mean, my wife Jenna and I had what looked like the perfect suburban life, a modest two-story house on Chestnut Street, golden retriever in the yard, cookouts with neighbors on weekends. You know, the whole Norman Rockwell painting. We had been together 8 years, married for 6. And for the most part, I thought we were happy. Sure, she could be a little sharp-tongued when things didn't go her way, and she lied about little stuff sometimes, like forgetting a bill or pretending she didn't hear me ask her to pick up milk. But I chalked it up to stress or just plain old marriage wear and tear. Looking back, though, there were signs. Little things that didn't add up, like the weird look she gave me when she handed me the positive pregnancy test, or the way she brushed off every question I had about her prenatal visits, almost like she didn't want me there. I told myself it was hormones, nerves, whatever. Then, the day our son, Caleb, was born, man, that's when the universe decided to slap me right across the face. He was beautiful, don't get me wrong. Big brown eyes, a head full of dark curls, tiny fist waving in the air like he was ready to fight the world. But as I held him, something twisted deep in my gut. Jenna and I are both pale as ghosts, blonde hair, green eyes. Caleb wasn't. His skin was a warm cinnamon color, and his features, his hair, his nose, well, let's just say they weren't mine. I convinced myself it was just genetics being weird. Maybe some ancient Spanish ancestor on her side? Maybe some recessive gene that skipped generations? People tell themselves all kinds of comforting lies when they're desperate not to see the truth. I was desperate. I wanted to believe he was mine. I needed to. But that was only the beginning. It wasn't long before the whispers started. At first, it was just a couple of weird glances at the grocery store, a few awkward pauses at backyard parties when people would see me bouncing Caleb on my knee. Small town like Hanover, people notice. People talk. I tried to brush it off. I was determined to be the best damn dad I could be. I was at every diaper change, every midnight feeding, every doctor's appointment Jenna actually let me attend. But the cracks were getting harder to ignore. One night about 6 weeks after Caleb was born, Jenna had gone out for one of her girls' nights, something she suddenly needed a lot more often than she used to. I was sitting there on the couch, bottle-feeding Caleb, and just staring at him when the thought hit me hard. I deserve the truth. The next morning, fueled by a mixture of dread and coffee, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't. I snooped. I dug around her phone while she was in the shower. I'm not proud of it, but desperate men do desperate things. There it was, buried deep in her deleted messages, a thread with a guy named Marcus. A guy I'd never heard of. A guy whose smiling profile picture made my heart plummet straight through the floorboards. Brown skin. Dark curly hair. Dimples. Caleb's dimples. I couldn't even breathe. I sat there with the phone burning a hole through my hand while Jenna hummed in the shower like nothing was wrong. She'd been lying to my face every day. Every time she smiled at me. Every time she called me daddy. And somehow, I still loved that little boy more than anything. I didn't storm into the bathroom. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone at her or demand explanations like some daytime TV meltdown. I just sat there, hollowed out, until she finally came downstairs in her fluffy pink robe, hair wrapped in a towel, acting like the same old Jenna. I asked her, as calmly as I could, if she knew someone named Marcus. Her face froze for a millisecond, just long enough to tell me everything, but she recovered quick, plastering on that fake, lazy grin she always used when she was caught doing something dumb like backing into a parking meter. Oh, Marcus? Just a friend. From work. You're being paranoid. Maybe you need to talk to someone about your trust issues. The gaslighting was almost impressive, honestly. Like she'd practiced it in the mirror. I pressed. Harder. I told her I knew about the texts. About how they'd started way before she got pregnant. About the messages she thought she deleted but didn't clear out completely. That's when the real Jenna showed up. She rolled her eyes. Scoffed. Said I was being dramatic. That it was just a stupid mistake, and wouldn't even matter if I actually cared about Caleb like a real father. I don't know what hurt worse, the cheating, the lies, or the way she said that last part, like she was daring me to stop loving him. Like Caleb was just collateral damage in her little mess. She didn't apologize. Not once. She didn't cry or beg or promise it would never happen again. She just stood there, arms folded, looking at me like I was the one ruining everything. I realized right then, whatever this marriage had been, it wasn't a partnership. It was a transaction. And I'd been overpaying for years. After Jenna walked off, actually walked off like we were arguing over what movie to watch, not the fact that she betrayed our entire life, I just sat there. For a long time. I think Caleb started crying at some point, but it felt like I was underwater. Like my whole brain had shut down, protecting itself from how bad it actually was. When I finally moved, it was automatic. Picked up my son, held him close. He curled into me, tiny and trusting, without a clue that the ground underneath us had cracked wide open. That's when I realized the saddest, hardest truth. None of this was his fault. He didn't ask for this. He didn't choose to be born into a hurricane. He didn't betray me. The love I felt for him, that didn't change. Couldn't change. What had changed was everything else. I couldn't look at Jenna without feeling sick. I couldn't sit in that house without wondering what parts of it were real and what parts were just props for the little play she was putting on. And for the first time since I said, I do, on a hot July day in Lancaster, I realized something I never wanted to admit. I was done. Not just with the lies. Not just with Jenna. I was done pretending this marriage was something it wasn't. After that day, everything inside me shifted. I didn't tell Jenna I was leaving. Not right away. I moved like a ghost through that house for a few days, going through the motions, pretending for Caleb's sake. Changing diapers. Warming bottles. Reading the same little picture books about trucks and dinosaurs every night while Jenna stayed glued to her phone, tapping away like nothing mattered except whoever was on the other end of the screen. I thought maybe she'd notice. Maybe she'd sense the difference, that the husband who used to orbit her was spinning off into his own galaxy. But no. She was too wrapped up in whatever fantasy she was chasing. By the end of that week, I had made up my mind. I wasn't staying. I wasn't fighting. And I wasn't letting her destroy Caleb's future because of her mistakes. So I did what any man who's been burnt to the bone does. I found a lawyer. Quietly. Set up a meeting on a Tuesday afternoon when Jenna thought I was at work. Turns out, since we were married, and since Caleb was legally born in wedlock, I was listed as the presumed father. Even if DNA proved otherwise, Pennsylvania law gave me parental rights if I wanted to claim them. And you know what? I did. I wasn't letting her, or anyone else, tell Caleb he didn't have a father. Not when he needed one more than ever. The lawyer said I'd have a good shot at shared custody. Full custody would be a tougher battle unless I could prove Jenna was unfit, which, given her history of lying and the general dumpster fire her personal life had become, wasn't exactly impossible. I went home that night feeling lighter. For the first time in weeks, there was a plan. A way forward. But life, man, life has a sick sense of humor. The very next day, while I was packing a box of Caleb's stuff to take to my brother's place, where I planned to crash once I left Jenna, the doorbell rang. And standing there on my front porch was Marcus. The man. The biodad. He looked nervous, holding his hat in his hands like some old-fashioned farmhand. I didn't slam the door in his face. I didn't throw a punch, even though my fist itched for it. Instead, I just said, "You'd better come in." And that was the start of something I never in a million years would have expected, something that flipped this whole mess upside down in ways Jenna never saw coming. Marcus stepped inside, looking like he half expected me to throw him back out again. He kept glancing around nervously, like Jenna might jump out from behind a couch and start shrieking. I stood there for a long second, trying to size him up. He wasn't what I expected. Not some cocky homewrecker or smug idiot who thought he'd stolen a family. No, he looked ashamed. Like he didn't even want to be here but didn't have a choice anymore. He asked if we could sit. I nodded stiffly and led him to the kitchen table, the same table where Jenna and I used to sit, eating Chinese takeout and dreaming about a future that apparently only I cared about. When we sat down, Marcus didn't beat around the bush. He said he didn't know Caleb existed until 2 weeks ago. Said Jenna told him when she got pregnant that she was working things out with her husband and that he needed to stay away if he cared about her at all. He listened. Like a fool, he said. He admitted they had been seeing each other for about a year, mostly in secret. Some office thing that spiraled out of control, the usual. But when Jenna found out she was pregnant, she told him flat out that the baby wasn't his. That she and I had been working on the marriage, and that any drama would only ruin everything. Marcus said he tried to move on. Dated someone new. Focused on work. But something never sat right with him, he said. And when pictures of Caleb started circulating, through mutual friends, Facebook posts, whatever, he saw the truth staring right back at him. Same dark curls. Same wide brown eyes. He said he didn't come here to take Caleb away. He didn't want to rip apart what family Caleb had left. He just wanted to know him. To be a part of his life somehow. And here's the kicker, the part that made my stomach flip and my heart break at the same time. Marcus told me he'd been cheated on once too. Years ago. Different woman, different town. Left him broken for a long time. So when he realized what Jenna had done, he didn't come at me with fists or demands. He came to say he was sorry. It hit me harder than any fight would have. Because here I was, sitting across from the man who should have been my mortal enemy, and instead he looked like the only other person who understood how deep this betrayal ran. It was the weirdest feeling in the world, like looking at someone who wasn't a threat, but a mirror. And sitting there in that awful awkward silence, both of us hurting in ways we hadn't even figured out how to name yet. I realized something else too. Jenna hadn't just broken our marriage. She had built a bomb big enough to shatter 3 lives at once. And somehow, I didn't want to hate Marcus. Not when he looked just as wrecked as I felt. It's funny how betrayal doesn't always split people apart the way you'd expect. Sometimes it welds them together, 2 broken pieces stuck by the same explosion. After that conversation with Marcus, I sat there staring at the kitchen clock, feeling something I couldn't even name. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. Not yet. But it wasn't hate, either. We talked a little more, awkward and halting like 2 guys in a bad movie script. He said he wasn't going to push anything, not custody, not rights, not even visits if it messed Caleb up. He just wanted to be in his son's life if I thought it was safe, healthy, right? He kept saying your son when he talked about Caleb. Not our son. Your son. Like he already knew he was the outsider, like he respected that no matter what biology said, I was the one who stayed. That hit hard. I told him, and it came out sharper than I intended, that I wasn't making any promises. That this wasn't something you just glue back together over beers and a handshake. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. We were still talking when Jenna came home. And oh boy, she walked in like she owned the damn world, shopping bag swinging, sunglasses perched on her head, loud on the phone about some brunch she had planned with her girlfriends. Until she saw Marcus, sitting at our table, talking to me. I have never seen a face drop so fast in my life. She froze in the doorway like she hit an invisible wall. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, like a fish gasping for air, and then she snapped into action. The lies poured out faster than I could even process. Marcus was crazy. He was stalking her. He was lying about Caleb. He was obsessed. She was scared. She didn't even know how he found our house. All in the span of about 15 seconds. It would have been impressive if it hadn't been so pathetic. Marcus didn't even argue. He just stood up, said he'd let me handle it, and left. Quiet. Dignified. Like he knew nothing good ever came from rolling in the mud with pigs. And Jenna, well, Jenna lost her damn mind the second he was out the door. She accused me of plotting against her, of trying to ruin her life by even listening to Marcus. She demanded I cut off all contact, said if I didn't, she'd make sure Caleb never saw either of us again. Standing there, screaming at me in the same kitchen where we used to share coffee and stupid crossword puzzles, she didn't even look like the woman I married anymore. She looked like a stranger. A dangerous, cornered, angry stranger. And in that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't afraid of her threats. I wasn't even angry. I just felt done. Completely done. I told her flat out that I was filing for separation, that Caleb was coming with me, and that any custody negotiations were going through lawyers now, not screaming matches in our kitchen. She laughed in my face. Actually laughed. Said I had no case. Said no judge would believe a bitter husband over a loving mother. She had no idea the tsunami coming her way. Because it wasn't just me she had to worry about anymore. It was me and Marcus. An alliance she never saw coming. After Marcus left, I sat down at the kitchen table again, staring at my hands like they belonged to somebody else. Jenna stormed upstairs, slamming doors, throwing stuff into drawers and suitcases. It was theater, really. She wanted me to chase her. Apologize, maybe. Beg her to stay. Fall back into the old dance where she lied, I forgave, and nothing ever changed. But I didn't move. I just texted my lawyer. Told him to prepare the papers. Told him I wanted primary custody of Caleb. Told him I wasn't playing nice anymore. The next morning, Jenna came down with a wide fake smile and a speech about how she was willing to work things out for Caleb's sake if I apologized for overreacting. She even made pancakes. The kind with chocolate chips. Caleb's favorite. She laid it all out like it was some normal Saturday, like the walls weren't burning down around her. But I wasn't hungry. While she was flipping pancakes, I casually mentioned that Marcus had agreed to a paternity test, voluntarily, no court order needed. The spatula froze halfway to the plate. Jenna tried to pivot fast. Suddenly, it was all about trauma and stress and how she was so confused back then and how we couldn't undo the past and should just focus on healing. She even squeezed out a few tears. The thing is, maybe a few months ago, maybe even a few weeks ago, I might have fallen for it. But not now. Not after everything. I told her flat out that we could do it the easy way, quietly, amicably, with Caleb's stability first, or the hard way, in court, with every dirty secret dragged into the light. She picked the hard way. Of course she did. Jenna wasn't built for humility. She was built for winning. Or at least pretending she was winning, even when everything was falling apart. Meanwhile, Marcus and I kept talking, texting, meeting up at a diner just outside of town where nobody knew us. The weirdest thing? It didn't feel awkward. He didn't act like some would-be dad trying to muscle in. He respected boundaries. He told me again and again that he wasn't there to rip Caleb away from me, that he saw me as Caleb's real father, no matter what blood said. He offered to testify on my behalf if things went to court. Said he'd tell the judge everything about Jenna's lies, about her manipulating both of us, about how unstable she was during the pregnancy and afterward. It was surreal, two guys who should have hated each other sitting over bad diner coffee, planning how to protect the little boy we both loved in different ways. And the best part? Jenna didn't have a clue. She thought she could pit us against each other. She thought Marcus would storm in, demand full custody, and make everything a giant bloody mess. She never imagined we might stand side by side instead. The paternity test came back 2 weeks later. No surprises there. Caleb was Marcus's biological son. But he was my son too, and I wasn't giving him up. The day after the results hit, Jenna got served with the separation papers. She tore them up right in front of me, shredded them into 1,000 tiny pieces, screamed about betrayal and revenge, and how she would make sure I regretted this. I just stood there, calm as a stone, while she raged. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't the one in control. I was. The day after Jenna shredded the separation papers like some bad Lifetime movie villain, she started her campaign. First it was the charm offensive. Sweet texts, apologies, offers to work it out for Caleb's sake. Long, syrupy voicemails about how we still had a family worth saving. Even a weird gift basket showed up at my brother's house. Wine, cookies, a stupid little teddy bear that said, "I'm sorry," stitched across its chest. I didn't answer a single thing. Not because I didn't feel anything, believe me, every new message ripped open a different wound, but because I knew better now. Jenna didn't apologize because she was sorry. She apologized because she was losing. When the sweetness didn't work, she moved to anger. Suddenly I was emotionally abusive. Suddenly I neglected Caleb. She sent me a raging email full of random accusations that read like she'd Googled how to win custody battles at 3 in the morning. Next came to friends, or what was left of them. I got bombarded by texts from her old high school pals I hadn't heard from in years. People checking in, and then conveniently mentioning that Jenna was struggling and that maybe we should think about Caleb's best interests. Translation: go back, make it easier for her. Meanwhile, Marcus and I were still coordinating quietly in the background. We met twice a week at the same greasy diner, shared notes about Jenna's escalating behavior, compared screenshots, timelines, everything we could gather to show the judge exactly who she had become. Marcus even found an old coworker willing to testify, someone who knew about the affair while it was happening and how Jenna lied to both of us to keep the secret alive. Piece by piece, we were building a case. Not out of revenge. Not out of spite. Out of love. For Caleb. For the kid who didn't deserve a mom who treated people like disposable props. The final straw, the one that almost made me lose the calm I'd fought so hard to hold, came one afternoon when Jenna showed up at Caleb's daycare. Unannounced. Demanding to take him out for an emergency doctor appointment she had made up on the spot. Luckily, the staff had already been briefed by my lawyer. They stalled her, called me, and kept Caleb safely tucked away in the back. But that was it. That was the moment I realized Jenna wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. She wasn't thinking about Caleb at all. Just herself. Her image. Her control. I filed for an emergency custody hearing the next day. Marcus agreed to testify. So did the daycare director. So did my brother. We were ready. And Jenna? She was still out there playing checkers while the rest of us were playing chess. The courthouse in downtown Hanover isn't big. It's one of those squat brick buildings with sticky floors and flickering lights, like the whole place is trying to remind you nothing good happens here. I sat outside the courtroom in a hard plastic chair, Caleb's favorite stuffed lion jammed into my backpack next to a folder thicker than my arm, witness statements, texts, emails, screenshots, everything we'd gathered. Marcus sat across from me, quiet, focused, the same way he had been every time we met. Not anxious, not fidgeting, just ready. Like he knew this wasn't about either of us. It was about that little boy with the big brown eyes waiting at home. Jenna showed up 10 minutes late, of course. Tight skirt, 4-inch heels, crocodile tears already locked and loaded. She walked in on the arm of her lawyer, some slick guy from York who looked like he belonged on a billboard for DUI defense. She didn't even glance at me. Didn't even glance at Marcus. It was all theater. Like if she acted sad enough, broken enough, everyone would forget what a mess she'd made. The hearing started. I'll spare you the legal jargon, but it was brutal. Jenna's lawyer tried everything, painting me as controlling, Marcus as some deranged stalker. They even tried to argue Caleb would be confused if I stayed in his life knowing I wasn't his biological father. They thought that argument would stick. They thought the judge would lean into bloodlines and DNA, but they didn't count on one thing. Proof. Mountains of it. Enough to choke the entire courtroom. The daycare director testified first about Jenna's outburst, about how she tried to lie her way into pulling Caleb out without permission. Then Marcus's former coworker testified about how Jenna lied, manipulated, and hid the affair. Then Marcus himself, standing tall and calm, laying it all out. How he never even knew Caleb existed until months after the birth. How he never tried to interfere. How he respected the bond between me and my son. When it was my turn, I just told the truth. No theatrics. No dramatics. Just the plain, raw story of a man who loved his boy more than anything, and a woman who burned it all down for her own selfish reasons. Jenna's turn came. And man, it was like watching a slow-motion train wreck. The fake tears didn't hold up. The lies didn't hold up. She contradicted herself so many times even her own lawyer looked like he was giving up by the end. The judge didn't rule that day. They rarely do. But you could feel it. Everyone could. The tide had turned. Jenna stormed out of the courtroom like a queen without a crown. Slamming doors. High heels clicking furiously down the hallway. Yelling into her phone about how unfair this all was and how she was going to fix it. But there was no fixing it. Not anymore. Because this wasn't just about a marriage anymore. It was about a boy. And the judge had seen exactly which parent put him first. It took 2 more agonizing weeks before the official custody ruling came down. Every day felt like walking on broken glass, trying to keep life normal for Caleb while quietly dying inside from the not knowing. Then the call came. My lawyer's voice crackled over the speakerphone, barely containing his grin. Primary custody awarded to me. Jenna would get supervised visits, short ones at first, until she could prove to the court she wasn't a risk to Caleb's well-being. There were stipulations a mile long. Therapy. Parenting classes. Regular check-ins. She looked furious in the courtroom, like she still couldn't believe she didn't just waltz away clean like she always used to. But I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about her anymore. I was thinking about Caleb. His little laugh. His sticky hands clutching my sleeve. The way he called me Dad, without hesitation, like the blood in our veins didn't matter compared to the love between us. When I picked him up from daycare that day, he ran straight into my arms. No hesitation, no fear, just pure trust. And I realized this wasn't the end of a family. It was the beginning of one. A real one. Marcus kept his word, too. We took it slow, visits at the park first, then afternoons at the house. Caleb didn't understand everything yet, and we didn't force it. Marcus never tried to claim a title he hadn't earned. He just showed up, kind, steady, real, the way a man should. And somewhere along the way, something even crazier happened. Marcus became my friend. Not a forced, awkward friendship. A real one. The kind where you can sit in the backyard, 2 beers between you, watching a kid chase a soccer ball around, and know without saying a word that you've both been through hell and made it out the other side. He helped me fix the back fence. I helped him move into his small place a few streets over. He taught Caleb how to toss a football better than I ever could. I taught Caleb how to patch up his scraped knees afterward. We built something Jenna never could, a foundation rooted in honesty, loyalty, and choice. Funny how life works. You think losing everything will destroy you. Sometimes, it just clears the field so you can finally plant something real. Jenna still tries sometimes. A snide text here. A social media post there. Little barbs tossed into the wind, hoping to wound. But it doesn't matter anymore. Not to me. Not to Caleb. We're building something better. Something she can't touch. Last Sunday, Marcus and I grilled burgers out back while Caleb ran around with a toy lightsaber, laughing his head off. The sun was setting. The fireflies were just starting to flicker in the yard. And for the first time in a long, long time, I realized something. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living.